long time, I was scared to share my true color, to be who I truly was. I was hiding in the story I was reading, fearful of what people would think about me. But this ends now. I have stopped running. I decide to accept my diversity. Today, I will share our story of neurodiversity and mental health awareness. Welcome on the ADHD Melly Show. Hello, everybody. I hope you're having an amazing Friday. It's Friday with Melly always, the ADHD Melly Show. So I hope you're doing well. So today we're going to talk about mindset because, I'm facing a lot of hardship in this moment. And, sometimes you see me in posts where I'm not feeling very okay, you know what I mean? So that's what we're going to talk about today because I think it's a very important subject. And I hope that you will enjoy this chat with me and James. So welcome, James.
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon.
Hello. Good afternoon.
6 o'clock where I am. 1 o'clock, I believe, where you are.
Yeah, exactly. It's always at 1 p.m. Eastern time or EDT, depend if we change for summertime or not, So yeah, it's always
Definitely
changing because of that. So how are you doing today?
I'm not too bad, actually. Not too bad. I have been struggling. If I'm being honest, I've been struggling with my own mental health over the last sort of couple of months. But today, it's a pleasure to join you guys, and thank you everybody that's joining us.
Yeah, I hope there's going to be a lot of people. And if you're online with me, just tell me. I'm so happy to see people when you're here. If I'm checking on my phone, I'm going to make sure that everything's fine and people can see me and I see that everything's going great, and that's what I like. So talk to me a little bit more about yourself.
Well, what a journey. What an absolute journey. I've been quite visible on LinkedIn, on the other social media platforms. For me, as you know, Melly, I was diagnosed with ADHD at 37 years old. I'm 44 this year, and what a journey. I certainly didn't see that one coming. Firstly, being brought up in a society, I guess, where, well, I couldn't understand myself, let alone, society understanding, who I was as a person growing up, right? ADHD back then wasn't as well known as it is now. We're nowhere near where, for me, we need to be in terms of what we know about ADHD and effective ways of managing the symptoms. I guess, we're a lot further than we were, right? So I guess that's a huge positive.
Absolutely. And why have you decided to search for a diagnosis?
Well, I've always struggled in certain environments, growing up. I always struggled with, learning, school. I was a quite intelligent guy, intelligent kid, growing up. But I don't know, it was almost like I just couldn't get it, right? I just couldn't get it. It was like I was missing something. I can remember many, many times growing up as a child in different environments in school and around friends, and just feeling different from the rest, and not quite knowing why. But I knew there was something different. It was like, I weren't the same as other people, but I didn't know what it was. I guess, growing up in society, I felt quite lonely. I know this now, Melly. I know these things now because I know a lot more about myself and some of the difficulties I had growing up in that sort of environment. So back then, it wasn't a case of wanting to find out back then. It was a case of, not quite knowing what was going on, just knowing that there was something different for me, the way I was, the way I interacted or didn't interact with other children of my age, and swapping and changing from different hobbies and things like that. I was always, we're very talented in what we can do because we have this obsessive compulsive behavior, right? And if we're getting something out of it in terms of a stimuli, a reward, we tend to sort of obsess over it and struggle to stop doing it, right? But there are lots of different hobbies that I've got involved in growing up as a child, you know, judo, boxing, karate, football, cricket, you know, and all these different sports. And I can remember the trainer used to say to me every time I got into these sports, gee, you know, you're really good at this sport, right? You know, if you stick with this sport, you're going to go really far. And then all of a sudden, I lost interest, and I thought, right, yeah, no, I'll move on to the next thing, right? It was almost that level of excitement when I had that initial contact with that something excited. You know, it was like that. I wanted more of it, and then after a while, I don't know. I just lost concentration, focus, or I was just too busy in other stuff, right? And learning, I struggled to learn. It wasn't the fact I was in the class. I just couldn't get what people were telling me. It was just like, it was almost like going in one ear and out the other. I just could not understand. And, you know, I used to get, you know, really judged. And we talk about mental health. We talk about the stigma attached to that. And I think growing up as a child, certainly when I was growing up as a child, there's a lot of stigma. You know, I mean, I was called stupid, thick, you know, the joker of the class. You know, why are you always late? Why are you always forgetting your homework? Why do you not understand? You know, what's wrong with you? So, you know, what I learned was all these sort of messages that, you know, that were coming in from the outside world eventually become my own voice. And I didn't realize that until I got diagnosed. Now, it wasn't the fact that I woke up one day and thought, right, I'm going to get diagnosed. Yeah. That wasn't my plan. I didn't know until I was 37 that I had possibly ADHD. I thought I might have ADD, if I'm being honest. I didn't think about the H, the hyperactivity, because
You want to know why you have an H? Because now ADD doesn't exist anymore. Everybody's ADHD, that you have the H or not, because now they put it in different categories, but it's for everybody, the ADHD right now, and it makes it a little bit more easier than just stigmatize, oh, you're not hyperactive, oh yes you are, you know. So I prefer this new version as well. So I wanted to put this just wanted to say that to everybody, that everybody's now is ADHD, but with different category and etc etc. So you can continue.
No, definitely. I mean, back then when I knew a little bit about it, it was ADD and ADHD. You know, so that's come a little bit of a way, which is good to hear and good to see. You know, but my rationale when it first come to light, I thought, I'm not hyperactive. You know, I can sit still because I practice mindfulness, right? You know, and I can sit still for long periods. But if you look at my life, it is full, right? So I'm always doing something different. I've got plates juggling and things like that, right? You know, it's never enough. And but yeah, it was through my son's eyes actually that I was able to see that there was a possibility I had ADHD. You know, I went down the route of you know, the coexisting disorders. If we don't know we've got ADHD or we're not managing the symptoms of ADHD, the coexisting disorders, one of few is addiction. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, of course, I used substance from the age of 11 to 23. I didn't realize at that time that what in fact I was doing was I was self-medicating my symptoms of ADHD. I didn't know that at the time, you know. So, you know, I only learned that when I put down the drugs and the alcohol, and started to go on a discovery of self, you know, and find out who I was and why it was that I was self-medicating. So I got into recovery, you know, and I've been in recovery nearly 22 years. I haven't touched a mind-altering substance for 22 years. Now, in that time, I had 4 kids. And my second child, he was born 1 pound 14 ounces, right? He was in hospital May to October. He nearly died 3 times. You know, we talk about mental health. We talk about, you know, like what is mental health? It affects us, you know, psychologically, emotionally, and sometimes physically, right? You know, but to what degree that, you know, it depends on the individual. So like, I've always struggled with poor mental health, you know, over the years prior to me getting diagnosed. Actually, you know, I've been on antidepressants 3 times, you know, in that nearly 22 years of being in recovery from substance misuse, you know. But you know, especially when my son was going through that time, that period of being in hospital, nearly dying, you know, we got in touch with him for 3 months. You know, he 3 times we got asked to turn the machine off. You know, and I can remember looking out the third window, the third story window in a special baby care unit, and looking out there and thinking, if I just jump, right? But because I've always struggled with emotion. Yeah.
Mhm.
Firstly, identifying the emotion and being able to, let's say, regulate it.
Mhm.
Yeah. I always divert. I used to divert. That's why I went down the route of substance misuse, right? But then when my son was born and he come out, he survived. He was 18 a couple of weeks ago, actually. Unbelievable journey with my son. And he was diagnosed with ADHD at 6 or 7 years old.
Mhm.
And I was I left school with nothing, no education, nothing. Right. I was on school report. I don't know if you guys have school report where you are, but
Yeah, we
for,
do.
not, for misbehaving and things like that, I was on report for a good few years, and it was always needs improving,
Mhm.
not good enough, and so it was always NIs, right, which does wonders for their self-esteem, right, and
Yeah, I
and
know.
so so I left school with no GCSEs, not because I wasn't intelligent, because no one had the time to sit down with me and say, look, I think there's something up with this guy, I think this kid needs some help, and because it wasn't really known back then.
And then
I was
in
in a
my own time, I've been diagnosed when I was 6, and the only thing they did is to medicate me, and I don't even. I'm sure that it did work as it should.
Yeah,
Everybody told me that why I was not able to learn as fast, why I was always changing hobbies, why I'm not that as I'm normal, even for my family, for most of my stepfather was always saying, why she's not capable of doing that? Are you dumb?
yes,
They were not educated, and even if we had a diagnosis, nobody was there to help me that much. I know that there
mm,
were some educator, or I don't know how you say it in English, but a person that helped people with difficulty, but not for
mm,
ADHD. They were there for the
no,
autistic person. They were there with the somebody that was diagnosed with other condition, but for the ADHD person, I was supposed to be normal and being able
yeah,
to work in class. They wanted to put me in special class, but those special class were not fit for me with my ADHD. Were fit for people that were not capable of doing the curriculum like they were supposed to. I was intelligent enough to be able to graduate high school,
yeah,
but the only help that it was for the person that was not that other person problem like Down syndrome and stuff like that. And yeah, and I felt really alone because nobody was there to help me or support me as I needed to be. And I
yeah,
do feel you were not diagnosed, and I feel the same story that I have
mm,
myself, and I was diagnosed. So I'm so proud and so happy that things change for the future. Children that are now diagnosed with ADHD, people are
certainly,
more educated on it, even if it's definitely not perfect. Mostly for
mm,
adults, because I think that when you are 18, ADHD, autism, or anything else disappear. You're free to go. Let's go with your wings, and you'll be able to find a job or things like that. And that's not the case. You struggle for all your life. It never disappears. It's still there, and you struggle every day. And this struggle goes with not only employment. Yes, employment. If you cannot find a job that suits you, or you don't find any employer that wants to give you a chance, you don't have any money, okay? So you're stuck always circling around the same
mm,
situation for all your life. All my 20s, I struggle with financial and
mm,
etc. And that shouldn't happen. If somebody was there, and if there was employees that were inclusive and willing to be more patient and teaching you the job that you need to do, because the 80%, I always say it, 80% of American neurodivergent does not have a job right now, or they suffer, or they don't have any money, and they don't know what they are going to do with their life because nobody is there to support them. And employers are mostly in the old school. They are mostly
sure,
maybe like in the 40. They're maybe 40 years old, 50 years old in general of the employers, and those people
yeah,
are like in that they could be my parents, and my parent didn't understand me because nobody helped them to understand me. They didn't. I'm not blaming my parents because they didn't get the support they needed themselves, and that's still a problem. You should give you see Lauren, she's part of the 80% of neurodivergent that does not have a job. So I hire Lauren right now. She deserves to have a chance and to succeed in this world. Thank you, Jasmine, for being here. I'm so happy that you're here today. Thank you so much, Carl. Thank you so much, Juana, that's here as well. Mandy, I want to thank you, everybody, for being here at the same time that I'm talking, And yeah, so what I'm going to ask, and we're going to go on the mindset in a minute, I promise you, but I still want to know a little bit more what the impact it was when you got your diagnosis. What changed for you?
Everything. I mean, like, it was almost like, for all this time, for 37 years, I was lost, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, when I was diagnosed, I mean, if it wasn't for my son, I would not have been diagnosed.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome, everybody. It's lovely to have you part of this show with us. I would have been missed, as I was missed a long time. Now, my son when he got diagnosed, I was in my last year of my Bachelor of Science Honours degree in addiction counselling. Now, here was someone that I left school with nothing, no qualifications, nothing. Okay, but I studied for 6 years. Now, in my last year, I studied comorbidity, dual diagnosis, so to speak, right? And I thought I'd study, because my son was diagnosed with ADHD. I thought I'd study ADHD and addiction, because that was my two favorite topics. And I thought, if I can educate myself around ADHD, I can support my son. As you can probably hear, I'm quite passionate about this subject, right? It fills me with energy. And, just in the hope that someone can hear, right? Just one person, if I can help one person.
There's 6 people now.
Show. Fantastic. Right? Okay? Brilliant. Carl, you too. Wow. Yeah. Brilliant. Right. So, so where was I, right? Okay. Yeah. So my son, right? So I started to educate myself around ADHD. But at the same time, I was learning psychotherapies and effective ways of being a therapist, a counsellor, right? And during that process, I was educating myself around ADHD. I was seeing my son and the symptoms within him. And all of a sudden, I started to think, wow, there's some similarities. From what I'm reading, I'm like, where's this language coming from? Like, someone's following me, And for the first time, it was like, I started to connect these things. And I thought, you know what, actually, I'm just going to make an inquiry. And then what happened, they give me a questionnaire, the GP, my local doctors give me a questionnaire. I filled that out. Then they sent a questionnaire to my ex-wife, the mother of my four children, my mum, and then it was all collated together. And then I had to go for an assessment. And honestly, as I say, I know it's changed now, it's ADHD. But back then I thought, if anything, right, I knew I was self-medicating for years with drugs and alcohol. I knew that, but I didn't know what. I thought it was trauma. I thought it was my mental health, because the coexisting disorders of ADHD is addiction, anxiety disorder, depression, rejection sensitivity disorder, low self-esteem. And I'm like, well, I can identify
That's all
with them.
me.
Nothing like me
well,
too. Definitely, right? So, but I knew about the addiction. So I thought, right, I knew there was something different about, going back to when we first started the show, right? I knew there was something different about me. But when I went for my assessment and they come back and says, yeah, you've got your ADHD. Now, I mean, I feel it now, right? Because it's quite a big thing. Not just for me, okay? For years, I grew up on my own, right? Now, for my son to understand that his dad's got it, right? That was such a powerful thing. Like, he's not on his own. He don't have to go through anything on his own no more, right? Which was quite a beautiful process for me. So being able to support him and understand him and say, you know what, son, I know why we're doing this, right? I know why you're doing this. This is what's going on, right? Sometimes you can't help it, right? This You know, I can help you, I can guide you, you know, I can, you know, and then, but learning how to manage it myself, you know, and, you know, alarm bells rang, you know, when I was diagnosed, because they spoke about medication. Of course they're
Mhm.
going to, it's a psychiatrist. They're always going to suggest a pharmaceutical intervention. Right? Why? Because it, you know, for a lot of people, it does work. You know, and why
Mhm.
does it work? Because for me, I lack dopamine, right? I lack serotonin in my brain. So it's like depression. A lot of people go, don't take medication for depression. Well, listen, if you've had clinical depression, you need a pharmaceutical intervention to balance the chemicals of the brain to allow it to function as it needs to. So you sort of flatline, right? That's
Mhm.
depression. But you know,
Mhm.
for me, I looked at my substance use history, and I always chased something stimulant. You know, always lived on the edge, always excited, always, because people think addiction is just about. Thank you for identifying there, Lauren. Think, people think that addiction is just about drugs and alcohol. It's not. It's about sex. Well, for ADHD, I'm talking about, right?
Mhm.
Sex, porn, gaming, right? Cocaine, amphetamine, jumping off of like on a skydive, right? Or a zip wire, or on a motorbike, or fast driving fast. You know, it's that them things. If they're stimulating the brain, we're gonna want more of it. But what happens to us? Well, for me, is it slows me down. Like it provides my brain with what is required to slow me
Mhm.
down. Now, the only reason why non-stimulant medications prescribed for ADHD is because if someone suffers with that coexisting disorder, anxiety disorder, panic attacks, because guess what? That's why they check the heart rate when if you take stimulant medication, they'll always, well, I hope so. Professionals are supposed to check your heart rate, right? To
Yeah.
ensure the safety of that while you increase to the dose. The optimal dose is required to
Mhm.
give you whatever you require. Now, where is it? Lauren, I'm on medication too, right? It's not for everyone. I know that, right? But it helps me. Now, a pharmaceutical intervention on its own, for me, isn't effective. I've got to do other stuff. And that's where the mindset comes in, right? That's where the stuff that I've learned, that sort of like implementing that stuff in my daily living, that's where that comes in. But for me, when I got that diagnosis, Melly, it was like someone with a magic wand. That's the only way I can describe it, right? And
Mhm.
it was like, I actually went through a grieving process. I remember now, I went through a grieving process. I felt sorry for that inner child. You know, that child that got judged for years, like for not being good enough, for not
Mhm.
meeting this expectation or that expectation, you know. And you know what that kid wanted? Wanted a hug, and to be able to be told, you know what, it's okay. You're going to be okay. I'm going to show you, right? Rather than be left put in a classroom down the end of the hallway, classroom down the hallway playing on a computer because I was misbehaving in a class.
Mhm.
I needed more support. I'm grateful that I'm on medication. I've had therapy on and off for the years. Obviously, I'm a therapist myself, specializing in addictions and an ADHD life coach. But, it's that, you know, the journey, once I got diagnosed, the journey from there was absolutely unbelievable. I mean, that was 37, I'm 44 this year, right? But going from school with nothing. I was homeless
Mhm.
at 15. I was in a hostel at 20 years old in East London, UK. I weighed 8.5 stone. I had a black bag. My mum chucked me out because of my behaviour. Right, she had enough. Today I understand my mum saved my life. It's not for everybody, right? But today I do. I ended up in a rehab at 20 years old, not knowing I had ADHD. Just thinking I had a drug and alcohol problem, right? And
Mhm.
then obviously embarking on that journey of recovery. I went back to that same treatment. In the last sort of 15, 16 years, I've been involved in addiction, mental health. I've been working in I worked in men's prison, right in the middle of COVID, and I see ADHD undiagnosed going off all over the place. And we wonder why these people the criminals in there that was on the substance misuse wing, they go out, they commit crime, they use substance and come back because they're not being helped. You know,
Mhm.
I've worked in private and non-private rehabilitation centres. You know, I mean, it's huge, isn't it? Like coming
Mhm.
from this point here, which I can only describe as nothing, You know, growing up with a father that's an alcoholic, never present, you know, to being a father of 4 kids, you know, studying at university for 6 years, you know, getting diagnosed with ADHD, you know, struggling with my own mental health, you know, sometimes on a daily basis, you know, because how we present sometimes to the camera or sometimes to this, so it's not always what's going on for us, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But today, I try to be as authentic as I can because, you know, when we look at mental health and ADHD, like you're not going to get what I'm hoping you get if I'm not being sincere and I'm not allowing you in by being honest. Yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, getting that diagnosis, it set me free. I went through a grieving process, and it was almost like a self acceptance, like a self forgiveness. Actually, I wasn't that. You know what people told me for years? I wasn't that child.
And you know that most, if you have children with ADHD, you probably have somebody near you or yourself with ADHD because it's
Mm,
genetic. So I'm not surprised that you were diagnosed when your son was, because most of the time it comes in the family and there's somebody around you that has ADHD and probably has suffer as well, and they don't understand, they recognize themselves in the child. And I was bad behaved because of that, you know. I understand more now, you know. And I'm great that the parent or the adult go get some help as well. And I don't
mm.
understand. You've been to rehab, you've seen, you got meds, you got everything, and nobody put the
No,
finger on what you had. Nobody.
no,
I just can't
no.
imagine this is possible. What the heck?
Well, the thing is, you know, in this sort of industry, the addiction industry, people get treated for addiction. That's the
Hmm.
primary thing. But that's not a problem. Well, that's a cure for the person taking it. That's a solution. You know, when I'm
Hmm.
working with people, I will always say, "What's the positives of using drugs and alcohol?" And they're like, "What do you mean? There isn't any." Well, there must be. Otherwise, you wouldn't be taking it. Right?
Hmm.
It's doing something. Right? I'm not saying it's good. Right? I just want to get
Hmm.
that in there. Okay?
Hmm.
Right? It's not. It's you know. Let's understand what's going on. If we move that out of the way, we're left with the person. And that's where I come in, and you know, I'm blessed. Really, I'm in a position to be able to help with what is presented, which is
Hmm.
undiagnosed ADHD. November last year, 5 people I referred on to a private clinic in the UK in London that were similar age, from the age of 30 to 45, that were lost in the system, that hadn't been picked up as diagnosed with ADHD. Through my support, I was able to guide them to a private clinic, because the mental health here, you know, to get a diagnosis, you're looking at 2-3 years. Yeah, it's
I know here
absolutely
too. If
crazy.
I want to just get a therapist, like I said on one of my posts, is two
Yeah,
years. So they want you to die before. I have the impression they want you to do. You need to be suicidal to be able to get some help. Okay, that's
yeah,
how it
yeah,
works with the when you don't pay. Okay, that's you. I know that you in the US you need to pay for everything, but at least you get the service fast. Okay, here
exactly.
you don't, because you don't pay. And if you want to go to private, you need to get the money to do so or get insurance with your job. But with ADHD, like I said, there's 80% that's unemployed or maybe entrepreneur will say that. Okay, so you don't have the money to to pay for big insurance. So it's discouraging. I understand, and yeah, the system sucks, and that's how it is. So I
Mm,
hope to get more money so I can get more help faster. But for now, I'm going to wait, I guess. So, so we're going to go on the mindset now, because how can you get a great mindset when you have all those, you've been diagnosed with ADHD, anxiety, and depression, and more again. So how do you get the great mindset and just say, "Oh, that's going to be fine"? Because I don't know. You tell me that you were homeless, so you know what it is to have no money, right?
mm, exactly. You know, and I think it sometimes, you know, when I'm in that place of being really low and like feeling isolated, I don't want to engage with with society. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. I just want a sense of giving up. And I don't mean
Mm-hmm.
suicide. I mean just like escaping. Right? There's a
Mm-hmm.
difference. Just pulling away, going into my own little box of isolation. But in that box of
Mm-hmm.
isolation is not a good space for me. Right? I've been there many,
Mm-hmm.
many, many times, and the only way I can get out of that is by for me turning the me upside down to we. I've got to connect. For me, like me and my ADHD, I need to, my vitamin C, the C is connect. Right? I need to allow others in. I mean, that goes for mental health, any form of mental health, really. If someone's struggling, to be able to talk to someone, to have the courage. I had to learn the opposites. Right? So, for anger, irritability, being irritated, what does that mean? That's like that forgiveness. That's patience and tolerance.
Mm-hmm.
Right? What's the opposite? What's the opposite of fear? Having faith that everyone's going to be all right. Suffering with anxiety, understanding what is anxiety. Well, anxiety for me is when I'm starting to think about stuff out of right here, right now, and that could be
Mm-hmm.
just that far away, right? And
Mm-hmm.
trying to recognize that and bring it back into the present moment. Because guess what? Right here, right now, strangely enough, everything's okay. It's manageable, right? But
Mm-hmm.
it's that. I mean, I've got my own company. I'm coming up to 2 years starting my own business. Having that leap of faith, the courage, the hope. That is, for years, we're great at people pleasing. I don't know about you, Melly, right? But with ADHD, we fall in this place where I'm going to be you, right? Because if I be you, right, you're going to hit me, okay?
Mm-hmm.
We're like chameleons. We can blend into any background, right? So I had to understand that who am I?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what do I like? Like, what is good for my spirit, right? Now,
Mm-hmm.
research suggests, right, with ADHD, right, natural ways of reducing symptoms, 3 20-minute walks in green open space per week. The more green open space it is, the more likely it is to reduce ADHD symptoms naturally, right? So
Mm-hmm.
guess what? I mean, my favourite colour up to that point, I didn't realise, was lime green. Was like a specific green, which is bizarre, right? And us, a lot of us ADHDs, our favourite colour can be that colour. It's a specific green. But I love golf. I love being in nature. I love being around water. I can't like in this office. This is an office. I've had this office. It's an absolute godsend. I've got natural light coming in. You know, I'm blessed. I'm not at the desk all day every day. I can move. Right. If I
Mm-hmm.
lack concentration, there's certain things that I can put in place. I listen to music. When I'm doing
Mm-hmm.
invoices, I listen to drum and bass. It's finding your own way that works for you, right? I
Yeah.
practice mindfulness. I practice the five senses. Because with anxiety, like I was saying, with anxiety, I think about like if I think about stuff outside of right here, right now, I start feeling anxious. And it's like recognize that, bring that back. How do I do that? Well, I can do that with that pen actually. I just focus on that pen. What is it about that pen that makes that pen so unique, right? I practice mindfulness ironing, mindfulness washing up, right? Because we have these senses, right? We have these amazing senses. And I don't know about you, but sometimes that can cause me to become irritable if I'm in certain environments, like certain sounds and certain pitches and all these different things going on at once. I can start to feel like I'm getting agitated, but I recognize it now. Back then I
Mm-hmm.
didn't know. I
Mm-hmm.
just lose my stuff, like, I just go, and I'll walk out. Now I understand. Now I can have that healthier relationship with myself rather than give myself this hard time, like practice an attitude, you
Yeah,
know?
and I feel like that when I was younger, I couldn't manage my emotion that much, but when I got older, I feel like it's easier to. I'm not saying that it's easier. That sometimes I could feel almost like bipolar. Okay, I will be fine, and after
Mm,
I will remember something, and I'm going to feel low. But I mean, I'm not. When I was younger, I was like always full of rage all the time. I was like hitting
mm,
my sister, my brothers, or things like that, and now I'm not doing this anymore because it's like if I put it all in me instead of putting back. So that's art too, because you don't know always how to explain how you feel and why you feel this way, and
Yeah.
sometimes it's also difficult to explain it to the people that are around you. Like
Yeah.
I live with roommates, so I cannot put a panic attack on them because they are going to feel bad for me. so
Yeah, of
so maybe
course.
that
It's important to find your people, right?
yeah. Yeah.
Definitely. And it's something, like Lauren's just saying there, just to drink, drink cold water, or actually one of the distress tolerance skills, in terms of like if we're having an emotional wobble, yeah, is to get cold
Mhm.
water in your hands and freezing cold and splash it on your face. Like it's seen to reset the brain, like it resets the system. But
Mhm.
for me, I had to experience what emotions I was feeling. Now, I was brought up in a society where being a man, you didn't allow people in to show you emotion. Like you were
Mhm.
a man's man, you was a
Mhm.
strong man, right? I don't believe in that now, right? I don't believe in
Mhm.
that now, right? For me, it's about, being vulnerable, and it's okay to, in that process of being honest,
Mhm.
like I hurt. Guess what? I struggle with emotions, right? Life on life's terms is tough, on
Yeah,
many,
it
many
is though.
occasions. But it's achievable, isn't it? We can still turn up no matter what happens. That's about putting that right next, moving that step. Sometimes I've had to physically, like, sort of visualize, pick my collar up and
Mhm.
pull myself out the door, right? Force our body to do stuff, right? And eventually your mind will follow.
Yeah, and I think that if we can go to back to like hobbies and stuff like that, you're difficult to always do the same thing, you know. But
Mm,
when you have a business, for me, I'm doing websites, so I need to finish the website. Or I'm not getting paid, and that's the hardest thing is to finish the website. I'm so glad, I'm so happy when I start, and between the middle, I'm like, oh, I'm so bored of doing this. But I have to remind myself that I have to give me my a goal. When I put it sometime a note saying the money that the client is going to give me if I finish, and that helps because I have to give myself some motivation to just go through it because my brain won't make it happen if I'm not grounding to just a little thing that will make me happy if I accomplish that. It's a bit like the ADHD Millie show. It's been a year. I think it's the first thing that I've been able to do as long in my entire life because I
mm,
always quit. I always stop doing it because I'm bored. You can go to the gym. I will stop and go back later because I'm bored. It can be anything like that. And what
mm,
helped me to being able to continue the ADHD Millie show and not stop is putting a time, the same time every week, and putting the same date every week. So the same time, and always Fridays, always that time.
mm.
At least
Consistent.
my guest needs accommodation, but normally it's always the same. It's always the same time. So it's
Yeah.
helped me to. I have no choice. And having guests that are waiting for me, I cannot say I don't want to do it today. I need to do it because somebody's counting on me. So just that
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
helps me just
Well, I
being
let people
able
down.
to do, yes, consistency. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I do a weekly planner. That's something that I do when I'm helping people, right? But I also implement it
Mhm.
in my weekly planning. I have a whiteboard. It's got, time slots. I've got everything on that, right? Consistency,
Mhm.
routine, structure. Definitely, Lauren. For me, it's really important. Now, here's the thing. If you've got autism and ADHD, right, one likes routine and consistency, the other doesn't, right?
And
But
my
either way,
ADHD, I hate that.
yeah,
I
yeah,
hate
yeah,
it.
yeah, exactly. But with autism, it really is important. But however, what
Mhm.
happens is if we get that in place and we're consistent with it, actually you find that it's a lot more effective. We're less likely to forget things. This is going to make you laugh, right? So going back a good few years ago, I got sent to a memory clinic
Mhm.
because of my memory, and
Mhm.
I ended up having to cancel the appointment. The third appointment I missed. I didn't know I had ADHD, by the way, then, right?
Mhm.
I just thought they said they would be able to help me with my memory. I kept missing the appointment. I kept forgetting the appointment, the memory clinic. they said, they said, do you not write the appointment down? I said, yeah, but I put the paper down. I don't know where I put it. I forget. So I had to, something I had to accept that, at that point there, I didn't know I had ADHD.
Mm-hmm.
But, there are lots of different things we can do, like eating healthy, that evening, that consistency of the nighttime routine, the morning routine. I get up and try and get up at the same time every day, because we are very habitual people, right? Even though we do things off the spur of the moment because we're quite impulsive, if we've got that routine and structure in place, it's a fantastic platform. It really is. I know, Lauren, right? Yeah.
It is funny.
Yeah, it's that, isn't it? It's that,
and you have to write it. For me, I tried paper a lot of time and I've struggled because I don't have any alert of what thing needs to be done. And for me, I need the alert like 10 to 20 minutes before so I can remember it. Because the problem when you have ADHD, you have problem with your memory. You remember things that happened to you when you were 5, but you don't remember what you need to. You don't remember what you need to do with 20 minutes. That's going to happen. You don't remember that, and we don't remember birthday. We, as people will say, we are not. They don't like us for that, but that's how it is. And alert on my phone really helps not forget it. And it can be the same thing as payments. I have to do not necessarily my rent, but I need to pay my phone, I need to pay this, I need to pay that. There's a lot of bills. Mostly when you're an entrepreneur, you have to pay for the hosting of the website, you need to pay for this. And there's a list. There's a big list and everything. Everybody has their different dates, and it can be hard sometimes to just focus and know what you need to do. And that's my tip for the day.
To stay on top of it. To-do lists. I've got a tip for the to-do lists.
Go ahead.
It does work for me. Because what we tend to do is we place unrealistic expectations on ourselves and the world around us, right? Mm-hmm. And then when they don't meet our high expectation, we feel like we've got a sense of being let down, or we've let ourselves down, right? So it's got to be, for me, it's about setting them realistic expectations of ourselves and others around us, right? Not everyone's going to make it on time. Not everyone's going to, people are going to let us down, right? But, for me, it's like my world falls apart, right? If I'm not aware of it. Now, so expectations around to-do lists are so important. So what I do is I create a to-do list. Now, off that to-do list, I will number each item 1 and 2. Now, the number 1s are the ones that are important that I need to get done today. The number 2s I can take over to tomorrow if I need to, right? And then what happens is I end up doing all the 1s, and then you can start the 2s, right? But if you don't get to the 2s, you can take them over to the next day. It's no big deal, right? But otherwise, you'd end up with this big list. Now, also, with the tasks as well, just before I forget, with the tasks, a good thing is, right, like PowerPoint presentations, we have certain things that we know that we're going to lose focus on. I don't think it's we're losing focus. It's not we're losing focus or getting bored. It's we're overstimulating. Like we're thinking about all these different things because what's going on in front of us isn't going in. So we start entertaining ourselves, right? We go on to all these different, different avenues. Now, if we find that we're losing focus around that very thing that is really important that we need to do, right? And we're not able to start it, rather than think about what it is that we're starting, think about how that's going to feel when you've completed that task. That way, it assists you to start and to complete it, because we're not focusing on how much energy and focus it's going to take up, right, on something that we're not really interested in. So if we do that, for me, it's like if I'm writing reports and things like that, I find that hard to sustain focus for long periods because, I start locking off into this other world, right? So for me, it's about trying to remember what it's going to feel like once that report is finished. And it is, it's a sense of achievement, isn't it, for all of us?
Yeah, and you have to take it to your own time, and but my problem is to make a big list and feel ashamed because I haven't done all of it.
That's right.
And sometimes I can feel bad and yet but I need to put my mindset to it's okay if I not finish that.
Yeah.
some things can happen in your life that you cannot work that day. It can happen, and
Yeah.
not just feeling bad about it all the time. And I want to be perfect because I know that it's impossible for me to be, because of my ADHD. So I want to be as perfect as possible. And sometimes I put too much pressure on myself, and it makes me feel so bad and gives me a lot of anxiety. And
Mm,
yeah.
yeah. That's why sometimes, for me, I do like a self-esteem journal at the end of the day, right? And
Mhm,
I ask myself a couple of questions, what has gone well today?
mhm.
Because what we tend to do is we focus on what's not gone well
Yeah.
today. Now, I know that people with low self-esteem do that genuinely, and,
Mhm,
and I don't know about you, but I've experienced a lot of people that haven't got ADHD. They say, oh, I think I've got ADHD. I do that. But actually, it's not the same severity as someone that's got ADHD. You may well have that, but times it by 20, 30 times, you might be somewhere close, right? You
mhm,
know, and it's like, but, it's about focusing on what we're doing well, not what we're not doing well. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to get in that mindset of moving forward.
mhm,
Like I can remember on my 6th year of studying, I went through a
mhm,
breakup with my ex-wife. She turned around and told me she didn't love me. I went through a divorce, selling a family home, not being able to see my kids every day, absolutely crippled me. And there was still, 6, 7 years down the line. I mean, I have a wonderful relationship with my kids. 6, 7 years down the line, you know, there's days when it breaks my heart not being with them, you know.
mhm,
But actually, it's about, okay, so that breaks my heart. Right? Shall I stay in that and allow that unhelpful thoughts to come in, right, and keep me in that place, or do I focus on the wonderful relationship that I do have with them, and when I do see them, and the love that I've got for them, and the fact that I am a fantastic dad, and the love and the affection and all this good stuff, right?
mhm.
It's important to acknowledge that as well as the other stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So the show is almost finished now. I always try to put it for this 5 minutes so it's not too long. But I always like to ask my guests if you have a last word or something that you want to share to end the show. It can be anything that you wish to share or anything like that. So you want to end. How will you do that?
Okay, I guess for me, if you've joined the show because you've got ADHD or you know, possibly thinking maybe I've got it, or the topic, how we keep a great mindset while
Mhm,
facing hardship. I was talking about mental health.
mhm,
If you're in a place where you're struggling with your mental health and it's hard for you right now, no matter what you're going through, reach out. But reach out to the right people. Yeah. There's suicides. I mean, it's horrendous. Yeah.
I
How
know.
many suicides are happening on a regular daily basis? Right. Now, for me, it's that reach out. Yeah. Just reach out. There are people that are going to be willing to help you and give you the right support. You're not on your own. And I know there's been many, many times that I've thought I'm on my own. Right. But all I've had to do is just put that one step in front of the other, make that phone call, reach out, seek a solution, and all of a sudden it passes. It does pass. But if I remain in it, I'm going to remain in it.
Mhm.
So in order for me to free myself, I've got to allow others in.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you so much for being here. Before we leave, I just want to say to the people that if you want to buy a pair of socks or join the membership, you can go to buymeacoffee/ADHD Melly, and you can get a pair of socks for real. You can get with the logo and everything if you want to. Go ahead. I'll be so happy that you will wear my socks. So just go ahead for that. I want also to tell you that I have my Discord community is 100% free. You can go there as well. And please, if you haven't do it, you're here right now, right? Go now on YouTube and type the ADHD Melly Show and subscribe to my channel. I need 100 followers. Please just follow if you are interested of watching the replays. They are always on that YouTube channel as well. So don't worry if you've missed it. There's always a way to get it back. And I'm going to send you the link as well, that so you can share it to your people that haven't watched it yet. So thank you again for being here with me today. I'm so happy that you were being able to share your story. You inspired so many people. There were so many people there here today. I'm so glad that you took the time to watch the show, and I will see you next Friday. Bye, guys.
Thank you, guys.